When it comes to TOEFL preparation, there are usually tons of word lists that are suggested to you. While your vocabulary should definitely be extensive to score high on the test, you don't need to know all these words. Why not? Because many of them are so formal and advanced that even if they appear on the TOEFL test, you don't really need to know them. You can easily answer all the questions and score high without this overly sophisticated vocabulary. However, there are also words without which dealing with the TOEFL test will be super challenging. So today, I decided to focus on those words and teach you 157 words you must know for the TOEFL test. We'll also talk about important prefixes that will help you figure out the meaning of many unfamiliar words. By the end of this video, you'll be fully equipped with the vocabulary you need to succeed on the test. After you finish watching, write winner in the comments below if all the words were familiar, or let me know how many of the words we covered were new for you. Also, if your TOEFL test is coming up and you want to get feedback on your essays and speaking responses, click on the link below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get more tips and tricks about the test, and click the bell icon to be notified when the next video comes out. Without further ado, let's get started. After studying tons of TOEFL practice tests, I've noticed that there are certain words that appear very often in reading passages and lectures, and they don't belong to any specific subject. These are the words that you will often find in academic articles and texts. And these are the words you'll usually need to answer questions on the TOEFL reading and listening sections. So in this video, I have collected 57 of the most common words you'll see on the TOEFL reading and listening sections that'll help you get the score you want. 1. Commodity. This word is super popular on the TOEFL, and I often see it in the reading passages. What's more important, it's often necessary to answer the questions. So, a commodity is any useful or valuable thing, especially something that you can buy or sell, like food, clothes, or electronics. So, coffee, grains, or precious metals are all examples of commodities. I've just seen this word mentioned a few times in 2 random reading passages, so it's really common for the TOEFL reading. 2. Exploit. If you use someone or something, usually selfishly or for profit, you'll exploit them. Factory owners can exploit their employees, making them work overtime. So to exploit is to use something or someone unfairly for your own benefit. On the TOEFL, however, you'll often see this word used in a slightly different sense. It usually means to make good use of something. For example, to exploit natural resources. The next word on our list is cultivate. The original meaning of this word is to prepare and use land for crops or gardening. So you'll often see it used in texts and lectures about agriculture. People can cultivate fields, gardens, or land. This word can also mean to develop or improve something, such as a skill or relationship. 4. Demise. Demise is the end of something. It can be the end of a person's life or anything else. We often use this word in medical or legal language, or when we want to sound formal. On the TOEFL, you'll often see this word used to describe the final stage of something. For example, the demise of a company or the demise of a relationship. 5. Prosperity. Another super popular word on the TOEFL test that I see all the time. Prosperity usually means being successful, especially financially. In the US, the decades after World War II were characterized by rising prosperity, with large numbers of people moving into the middle class. The adjective prosperous is also very typical for the TOEFL reading and listening sections. It means financially successful. Speaking of the word decade from the example I just gave, this is our next word. A decade is a period of 10 years. We have a decade, 10 years, a century, 100 years, and a millennium, 1,000 years. We actually have an entire course dedicated to TOEFL preparation, where we teach you all the words you need to know to score consistently high on each section of the test. We have lists of words organized by topic, templates for effective speaking and writing responses, strategies for each question type, and more. I'll leave the link to the course below. Another important word to know is alteration. Alteration means a change or modification. The verb to alter means to make something different or to change something, such as altering a plan or altering a law. Remember 3 words with a similar meaning: to alter, to modify, to change. You'll often need them for the TOEFL reading. 8. Intermittently. I can't tell you how many times I see this word. It's a fancy way of saying from time to time, periodically. The adverb intermittently describes something that starts, then stops, and then starts up again. If you studied intermittently last night, it means that sometimes you studied, but sometimes you took breaks to do other things. A phrase with a similar meaning is off and on. We came across it just recently in one of our reading videos. This phrase means that something happens periodically, like working off and on, or visiting off and on. So remember, off and on or intermittently mean at intervals, not continuously. 10. Extensive. For some reason, this is one of the favorite words of the TOEFL creators. They use it in practically every reading passage or lecture I've ever worked with, and believe me, there have been many. The first and the most popular meaning is covering a large area. For example, extensive road repairs, extensive grounds, or extensive agriculture. So imagine something that covers a large area. That's extensive. Extensive can also mean having a great range. If your knowledge of the TOEFL test is extensive, you know a lot about it. If an event gets extensive coverage in the newspapers, it means many people are writing about it. Next is the word sophisticated. When something is sophisticated, it's complicated and intricate. The inner workings of a computer are sophisticated. It's difficult to understand them unless you're a computer expert. High school math is a lot more sophisticated than grammar school math. Driving a car is more sophisticated than riding a bike. On the TOEFL, you'll often find mentions of sophisticated computer models, sophisticated systems, or sophisticated tools used by Asian people. 12. Diverse. Various, very different. It's another common word that pops up in almost every passage. Diverse means that something has many different parts or elements, such as diverse culture or diverse wildlife. 13. Abruptly. Suddenly or without warning. 14. Result in. To cause something to happen. For example, high economic growth results in higher inflation. 15. Mild. Not severe or intense. We often use mild when talking about the weather or climate. Mild weather isn't too cold or too hot. This is the meaning that's most popular on the TOEFL test. However, this word can also be used in other areas. For example, mild criticism, not severe. A mild heart attack, not too serious. The next group of words have similar meanings. They are drastically, dramatically, and spectacularly. I see all 3 of them all the time, both in the reading and listening. On the TOEFL, they usually mean extremely or a lot. For example, their budget has been drastically reduced. Reduced a lot. The nature of conflict has changed dramatically. Has changed a lot. This attempt failed spectacularly. Significantly failed. 19. Tolerate. To accept or put up with something. You can tolerate noise or a person. Some people don't tolerate rude behavior. 20. Threat. An impending danger that has the potential to cause serious harm. TOEFL reading passages usually have many examples of threats, such as enemy threats, health threats, death threats, and so on. A popular collocation is imminent threat. It's a synonym for impending danger. One more very common word on both the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL is decline. To decline means to decrease or diminish in quantity or quality. We use it when something is getting smaller or worse. For example, the decline of a business or the decline of a population. 22, coerce, to force someone to do something against their will. You can coerce a person to do something, or coerce a decision or a confession from a person. Again, just recently, I saw this word in one of the reading passages we were doing in a one-on-one session with my student. 23, retreat, to go away from a place or person, to escape from fighting or danger. The TOEFL likes to use this word in a variety of contexts. You can find information about lizards retreating into the shade, or retreating shares of a company. We can even find it in the integrated speaking questions. For example, question 3 may be about a psychological term in which the speaker understands that their proposals were clearly unreasonable and is forced to retreat. So expect to see this word in many contexts. 24, initially, in the beginning, at first. 25, eventually, in the end, especially after a long time or a lot of effort. A similar word that is often given as a paraphrase for the word eventually is ultimately. It means finally, after a series of things have happened. For example, the company ultimately succeeded, or the company ultimately failed. 27, rival. A few days ago, one of my students made a mistake in the reading passage because she didn't know this word. So I decided to include it in today's list. A rival is a person or thing that competes with another. So it's a synonym for the word competitor. The question she had was the sentence simplification question about terrestrial plants that had the advantages of not having rivals. In the text, there was a line about the land of opportunity, free of competitors. Because she didn't know the word rivals, she couldn't find the right answer. This is a typical example of why you should know synonyms. Otherwise, you'll waste time when answering the questions, and you may make mistakes. 28, data, information. 29, conventional, usual, traditional, ordinary. It's a super popular word that I've also seen used in vocabulary questions. I also see it a lot in the TOEFL reading passages. You can find information about conventional explanation of something, conventional farming, conventional medicine, or weapons. 30, supersede, to replace or surpass something. Some common collocations are supersede a law, supersede a record. Let's look at a typical sentence you might see on the TOEFL test. They still used stone tools similar to those superseded in Europe by metal tools thousands of years ago. Superseded, replaced. As you can see, the most effective way to remember all these new and difficult words is to think of simpler synonyms for them that you already know. That way, the next time you see the word supersede, you'll remember the word replace and will know what it means. Another super popular word I decided to include in this list is fossils. This word means remains or impressions of ancient plants or animals. Fossils look like this. You'll often find lectures and texts about fossils of dinosaurs. Again, I see this word all the time, and you just have to know it. 32, flourish, to grow or develop successfully. Just as your tomatoes can flourish in the summer, countries, companies, cultural life, the shipbuilding industry, computer technology, and lots of other things and spheres can flourish. People can also flourish, which means that they are successful. Remember we talked about the word prosperity earlier? Well, a synonym for to flourish is to prosper. Another synonym for this word we have on our list is to thrive. Your business or your relationships can thrive. So, remember these 3 words: to thrive, to prosper, to flourish. All of them mean to be successful. 34, disruption, an interruption or disturbance. 35, decay. Another word TOEFL creators love and use all the time. To decay means to rot or become weaker. For example, a building or a relationship can both decay. I recently had a text about how Venice's role as a storage and distribution center for spices, silk, and gold decayed, which means it became weaker and ultimately the city lost its monopoly. If you've taken at least a few TOEFL practice tests, you've probably also come across the idea that carbon decays in living things. Because carbon is radioactive, it decays over time, which means the older artifacts have less carbon than younger ones. This is why so many readings and lectures mention radiocarbon dating, which is a method that uses the decay of carbon to determine the age of organic materials. 36. Rigid, stiff, or fixed. Something that can be moved or bent. 37. Preserve, to keep something from decay or destruction. Simply put, to keep something safe. You can preserve a culture or preserve a historical site. By the way, a site is a place. 38. Depletion, the act of reducing or using something up. Some common collocations with this word are depletion of resources, soil depletion, or depletion of a population. 39. Estimate, to guess or calculate the cost, size, or value of something. As a verb, this word is pronounced estimate. It can also be used as a noun. In this case, we'd say an estimate. An estimate is a judgment or calculation of approximately how large or how great something is. If the mechanic's bill is much higher than the estimate they gave you, for example, you have a right to be angry. 40. Impact, the effect or influence of something on something else. Remember these three words: an impact, an influence, an effect. They are often used as paraphrases on TOEFL. The word impact can also mean the force or action of one object hitting another. For example, the moment two comments collide is called the moment of impact. 41. Inhibit, to prevent or stop something from happening. You can inhibit a process or inhibit a reaction. For example, this is the main factor inhibiting online access. Preventing online access. 42. Hibernation. This word is extremely common in academic lectures. Hibernation is a type of deep sleep that some animals, such as bears, for example, go into during the winter. So, simply put, hibernation is like taking a long nap. 43. Divert. The verb to divert means to change the direction or course of something. The police will divert traffic if there has been an accident, which is blocking the road. And it's a good idea to divert some of your income into a savings account, so you don't spend it all. On the TOEFL, you may find mentions of diverted traffic, information, diverted public attention, or investigation. 44. Tremendous, extremely large. For example, tremendous success or tremendous failure. A similar word is enormous. This word also means very big. An animal can be of an enormous size, or your parents can have an enormous influence on your life. 46. Emerge, to appear, to come out. Many different things can emerge. For example, details, patterns, trends, differences, or theories. A person can emerge from the crowd, or plants often emerge from the ground. 47. Expand. This word comes up all the time on the TOEFL. To expand means to increase in size or scope. You'll find texts about the universe, economy, business, or industries expanding. Markets or cities can also expand. 48. Proliferation, the act of increasing or spreading rapidly. 49. Escalate, to become greater or more serious. The situation started to escalate around noon. The credit crisis is escalating as expected. 50. Surplus. A surplus is something extra or left over. If your tree produces more apples than you can eat, you can make applesauce with the surplus of apples. you will often come across texts about surplus food, surplus money, surplus supplies. 51. Eliminate. This word is a must on the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL. To eliminate means to remove or get rid of something. This is what you do with the 4 answer options you get. First, you eliminate 2 options that are definitely wrong. You can also eliminate a problem, a possibility, or a risk. 52. Purchase. To buy something. For example, purchase a house or a car. 53. Obtain. To get something. You can obtain a degree, obtain information, permission, approval, or obtain a job. The next 3 words on our list have similar meanings. They are obligatory, mandatory, and compulsory. If something is obligatory, mandatory, or compulsory, you must do it because of a rule or a law. For example, this is mandatory to help prevent fraud. Registration was obligatory, but voting was optional. The study skills courses were almost always compulsory. You'll see these words all the time, so be sure to write them down if you don't know them. 57. Predominant. More noticeable or important, or greater in number than others. The predominant colors, however, were black and yellow. Look at these words. Anticlimactic, reacquaint, antecedent, circumvent, descend, extraterrestrial, permeate. Do you know what they mean? If not, can you guess their meaning? While you don't need to know all of them to get a 30 out of 30 on test day, you often need to be able to guess the meaning of difficult words you encounter in the reading, listening, writing, and even speaking sections of the test. Sometimes you can do this from context. However, there may be situations where the context won't be of much help. In that case, there is another way to figure out the meaning of the word, which we'll talk about in today's video. I decided to share a strategy with you that will help you find out what many unfamiliar words mean, and also allow you to learn 100 essential words for the TOEFL test. So, what's the strategy then? We can use our knowledge of prefixes, suffixes, and roots. For those of you who don't know, the root is the main part of a word that gives us its basic meaning. For example, in the word unhappy, the root is happy. Now, a prefix is a small part added to the beginning of a root word to change its meaning. For example, the prefix un in unhappy means not. So unhappy means not happy. Finally, a suffix is a small part added to the end of a root word to change its form or meaning. In this video, we'll only focus on important prefixes, but if you find this lesson helpful, let me know in the comments and I'll make 2 more videos talking about roots and suffixes. Quick note for those of you who may be wondering, why do I need to learn prefixes? How will this information help me ace the TOEFL test? Learning prefixes is a great way to learn tons of novel words and to guess the meanings of the unfamiliar ones, because many prefixes have consistent meanings. For example, if you know that pre means before, you can guess that preview means to view something before it's shown, while pre-med is the name for undergraduate courses that prepare students to enter medical school after graduation, which means they're taken before medical school. So, in this video, we'll explore some common prefixes and the words they create. Let's get started. The first prefix is anti. As you might have guessed, this prefix means against. Let's look at some common words with it. Antisocial, against being social, not wanting to be with others. Antifreeze, against freezing. An antifreeze is a liquid that prevents engines from freezing. Antivirus, against viruses. It's the software that removes computer viruses. Antibody, against some foreign substances. An antibody is a protein that fights harmful substances in the body. Antigen, a substance that causes the immune system to react. Antithesis, the complete opposite of something. The word is used to describe a person or thing that is the direct opposite of something. or someone else. Anticlimactic. When something seems like it's going to be exciting, but then it lets you down, it's anticlimactic. Let's look at a few examples. After all the build-up and suspense, the movie's ending was anticlimactic, leaving the audience disappointed. Her calm and composed demeanor was the antithesis of his angry and impulsive behavior. When a foreign antigen enters the body, the immune system responds by producing antibodies to fight it. As you can see, one prefix gives us 7 advanced words that are often seen in academic contexts. Prefix number 2, contra. Just as our first prefix, contra means against. Contradict, to say the opposite. Contravene, to act contrary to a rule or law. For example, the company knew its actions contravened international law. Contraband, goods that are prohibited by law. They're against the law. One important thing to remember, just knowing a lot of words won't help you ace the TOEFL test. In my one-on-one sessions, I now have a large number of people preparing for the TOEFL reading, and I'll tell you that most of them have a fairly extensive vocabulary. However, their main problem is that they can't apply the strategies for different question types correctly and work effectively under pressure. So what we do is work on automating their skills and teaching them how to adapt each strategy to find the right answer as quickly as possible. If you're also struggling with the reading section of the TOEFL test, click on the link below and sign up for the TOEFL prep course we have created to help students around the world prepare for the TOEFL test. We'll analyze tons of reading passages together, evaluate your speaking and writing, and tell you what you need to do differently to get a higher score. The next prefix is extra, beyond. Extracurricular, beyond the regular curriculum. She participates in many extracurricular activities, such as the debate club and the soccer team. Extraterrestrial, beyond the Earth. Scientists are searching for extraterrestrial life. Extraordinary, beyond the ordinary. Extravagant, beyond reasonable limits. Extrasensory, beyond the normal range of senses. Some people claim to have extrasensory perception. Prefix number 4 is bene. It comes from Latin and means well or good. This prefix is found in many English words that convey positive meanings related to goodness or well-being. For example, we all know the word benefit, which means something that is good or helpful. Another example is benevolent, showing kindness and goodwill. Benefactor, a person who gives financial or other support. A good person. Beneficiary, a person who benefits from something. For example, the main beneficiaries of these economic reforms. Benediction, a short blessing. Again, a good thing. Beneficial, producing good results. It's a very useful word for the writing section of the test. If you want to say that something is good and produces good results, you can say it's beneficial. For example, this policy has had a beneficial effect on the economy. The next prefix is ante. Don't confuse it with anti. Like bene, the prefix ante comes from Latin, where it means before. It's used in many English words to indicate something that comes before in time or position. Let's look at a few examples. Antecedent, something that comes before another thing. On the TOEFL, you can often find mentions of historical events that were the antecedents of the current situation, which means they came before the current situation. Antechamber, a small room leading to a main one, often used as a waiting area. So it's before the main room. Guests waited in the antechamber before entering the main hall. Number 6, miss. This prefix means wrongly or badly. We all know that to mistake means to make an error. Now, a few other words with this prefix that are common on the TOEFL test are misunderstand, to fail to understand something correctly, get things wrong. Misinterpret, to interpret incorrectly. Misfit, a person who does not fit in. For example, he felt like a misfit in the new school because he had different interests from his classmates. Misfortune, bad luck. Misbehave, to behave badly. I just saw this word in one of the speaking tasks. I think it was in question 3. Misguide, to guide wrongly. Prefix number 7 is re. It means to do again. This is a very popular prefix, and I see a lot of words with this prefix in all sections of the test. Let's look at some of them. Reabsorb, to absorb again. Reacquaint, to become familiar with again. Readmit, to admit again. Reappear, to appear again. Rearrange, to arrange again. Recopy, to recopy again. Reconsider, to consider again. A few more verbs. Rebuild, to build again. Renew, to make something new again. Reorganize, to arrange something in a new way. Reproduce, to make a copy of something or to produce offspring. Rehabilitate, to restore to a former state or to good health. Reevaluate, to assess or consider something again. Now, the words we just looked at are all verbs. You can also see many nouns with the same prefix. For example, resurgence. It's a very popular word on the TOEFL test that means a return or revival of something that has declined or disappeared, like comeback. A few other typical words with this prefix are rebirth, reconstruction, rediscovery, reevaluation, regeneration. The process of renewal, restoration, or growth when you generate something again. Reinforcement, the act of strengthening or supporting something. Reformation, the process of making changes to improve something. Restoration, the act of returning something to its original condition. Renewal, the process of making something new, fresh, or strong again. Let's look at a few typical TOEFL sentences using some of the words we've just covered. The resurgence of interest in classical music has led to a renewed appreciation of orchestral performances. The teacher used positive reinforcement to encourage good behavior among her students. After a period of decline, the city is experiencing a renewal of economic activity and cultural events. The plant can reabsorb nutrients from its old leaves before they fall off. All these words appear in every section of the test. So if you don't know them, add them to your list. Prefix number 8 is ex. It means out. Exclude, to keep out. Expel, to force someone to leave a place, usually a school or college. The student was expelled for cheating on the exam. Next, we have 3 prefixes: come, con, cal. They all come from the Latin prefix cum, which means together or with. These prefixes usually form words that convey the idea of coming together or being associated with something. Let's look at some examples. Compliant, meaning rules or standards. Communal, shared by all members of a community. Something for common use, like shared together. Combine, to bring together. Collaborate, to work with someone. Collect, together. Collate, to collect and arrange in order. This verb means to collect and arrange information, text, or data in a particular order, often for the purpose of comparison or organization. It can also refer to arranging the pages of a document in the correct order. For example, the researcher had to collate data from different sources to complete the study. Before you bind the documents, make sure you collate the pages properly. Connect, to join or link together. Convene, to come together for a meeting or a gathering. The board of directors is convening next week to discuss the company's strategic plan for the upcoming year. Prefix number 10 is hyper, excessively. Hypertension, abnormally high blood pressure. Blood pressure that's too high. He takes medicine to control his hypertension. Hyperactive, excessively active. Hyperventilate, to breathe too fast. We hyperventilate because we are afraid. Hypersensitive, extremely sensitive. Hyperinflation, extremely rapid inflation. The country is facing hyperinflation, making basic goods unaffordable. Hypermodern, extremely modern. The 11th prefix is the one you'll see a lot on the TOEFL test. It's inter. The prefix inter means between. Just look at how many words you can make with this prefix. Intercultural, between cultures. The program promotes intercultural understanding and exchange. Interact, talking, dancing, playing a game. All these activities allow you to interact with other people. It's about the communication that happens between people. Students are encouraged to interact with each other throughout the project. Intercept, to stop something from reaching its final destination. To get between that object and the final destination. If you're planning a surprise party for your friend and she arrives half an hour early, you might run to intercept her while everyone rushes to hide. A typical example: the spy managed to intercept the secret message. Interstellar, between stars. The movie is about an interstellar journey to find a new home for humanity. Remember the movie Interstellar? Let me know in the comments below if you've seen it, because it's definitely one of my favorites. If you haven't, you should definitely check it out. It will teach you a lot of useful vocabulary for the TOEFL test. Intervene, to come between. This word comes from the Latin intervenire, meaning to come between. So to intervene is to get involved, to jump in the middle of something, to interfere. By the way, to interfere is another great word with the same prefix. Prefix D means from or down. Descend, to move or fall downward. There is also a noun, descent, which means the process of going down. As in a popular quote from Virgil, the descent into hell is easy. Deduct, to subtract or take away an amount or part from a total. The tax is deducted from your payments. Degrade, to lower in character or quality, to go down in quality. The quality of cognitive processing is severely degraded. It has gone down in quality. Dehydrate, to remove all water from, or to dry up. To make a raisin, you dehydrate a grape. When you exercise a lot, it's good to drink water so that your body doesn't get dehydrated. Deactivate, to make inactive. Decelerate, to slow down. Decelerate is the opposite of accelerate, which means to go faster. It often describes slowing a vehicle, but it can relate to nearly anything, like a friendship that begins with hanging out nearly every day, but decelerates when you move to a new town or get busy with school or sports. It doesn't mean the friendship is ending or over, just that the pace is now a little slower. One more prefix you need to know is post, after. Post-operative, happening after surgery. The patient needed post-operative care. Postgraduate, a student who is continuing their studies after receiving a bachelor's degree. She is a postgraduate student studying for her master's degree. Post-war, after a war. Now the prefix pre means before. Precedence, the state of being earlier in time. Notice the verb precede in the noun precedence, and you'll be able to remember that precedence is the act of preceding or coming before, either in time or in rank. Safety should take precedence over speed. Predecessor. A predecessor is something that came before the current version. The person you replace at work is your predecessor, just as Pac-Man is the predecessor of modern video games. Predecessors include our ancestors, earlier car models, and all sorts of other predecessors. For example, the new CEO is very different from his predecessor. Predate, to happen earlier than something else. The document appears to predate the invention of the printing press. Preface, an introduction to a book. The preface gives an overview of what the book is about. Prehistoric, before recorded history. A typical sentence on the TOEFL reading section would be something like this. They discovered prehistoric fossils during the excavation. Again, the prefix pre means before, and the historic refers to something from a past culture. Put the two together, and you get prehistoric, a word that describes something that comes from a time before history was recorded. Premeditate, to plan in advance. The crime was premeditated, not a spontaneous act. Next is the prefix trans. As you may have guessed, trans means across. This is another very popular prefix on the TOEFL test. We have a lot of words with this prefix. Transport, to carry across. Transatlantic, across the Atlantic Ocean. Transcend, to rise above or go beyond the limits of. Translate, to express in another language. Transmit, to send from one place or person to another. Transverse, lying or being across. When something is transverse, it goes sideways or at an angle. You might take a transverse path across the park. It's a shortcut if you're in a hurry because you don't have to walk the entire length. Finally, the last prefix for today is pro, which means forward or before. Propose, to put forward for consideration. Proponent, a supporter of a cause. She's a strong proponent of renewable energy. This word is the opposite of opponent. Propel, to drive or push forward. The boat is propelled by a strong engine. Promote, to help to flourish, to move forward. The campaign aims to promote healthy eating habits. Proactive, creating or controlling a situation rather than just reaching to it. When you are proactive, you make things happen instead of waiting for them to happen to you. Pro in this context means before, which means when you are proactive, you're ready before something happens. Proliferate, to grow rapidly. The use of mobile phones has proliferated in recent years. These were the words and phrases you should know to ace the TOEFL test. Thanks for watching. Now it's time to calculate your results. Write "runner" in the comments below if all the words were familiar, or let me know which of the words we covered were new for you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tips and tricks. And remember, scoring 100 plus of the TOEFL isn't rocket science. It's the little things you do that make all the difference. As always, I wish you all a stellar TOEFL score. Until next time.